Hello and welcome to my tiny tarot practice. I'm Amelia Fruby, and on this show, I share my journey through the tarot, moving card by card with brief, easy episodes. This season of the podcast is sponsored by Tarot for Creative Spirits, which is an amazing book by Cecily Saylor that I highly recommend, and that you can find in the show notes with an exclusive discount code just for my tiny tarot practice listeners. Today's card is the Sun. In the Rider-Waite-Smith version of the tarot, the sun depicts a gleaming sun in the top center of the card with a face that is staring straight ahead at us. Beneath it, there are golden sunflowers atop a stone wall. And in the foreground, there is a white horse, and there's a child on the horse with a flower crown. And they're holding this billowing red flag that takes up most of the space to the right of the card. To me, this card immediately feels like joy and rejuvenation. This is a card about basking in the sun and enjoying its rays. And in doing so, enjoying all that life has to offer us. As Rachel Pollack says in 78 Degrees of Wisdom, under the sun, everything becomes simple, joyous, and physical. And in some ways, I think this card is quite simple. When we pull the sun in a reading, we're invited to open our eyes, to see the light, to feel the warmth of the sun's rays, and to enjoy. I think that this card can feel like that moment when you have an amazing idea and you suddenly realize something fantastic. It's that moment of enlightenment that we can feel in our bodies. At times, though, we can also have a little too much of the sun, right? We can become a little sun sick. We can get a sunburn. I often like to share with friends who love the tarot that when I was in my sun year, I got more sunburns than ever. And I think it's because I was spending so much time in the sun and it was showing me its love, but that was perhaps a bit too much for my skin. So while it can be tempting to only love the quote unquote positive cards of the tarot like the sun, the beauty of this card, I believe, really comes in the fact that it arrives after the moon, that we have to move through the shadowy wildness of our unconscious to bring all of these brilliant things to light, to surface them for our consciousness, to become conscious of them. That only happens at the end of this journey. We're exultant in this moment, but not every moment is a sun moment. The heights of this joy require the depths of our grief. And that's why every card in the tarot represents a specific archetype, but understanding the whole journey is perhaps more important than understanding any singular card. And so if you pull this card in a reading, I invite you to find joy and pleasure in your life, to embrace your own exuberance, and also to reflect on moments where you might have felt the opposite. Remembering those times doesn't have to deplete or depress us. It can, in fact, heighten our joy. And that's why I love when Cecily Saylor writes in Tarot for Creative Spirits that the sun is our love for this world and for life itself, particularly the unadulterated visceral joy we find, return to, and reclaim after we have come to know the depths of life's suffering. After all we've lived through, we are still here and willing in new ways to make the most of it, to soak it all up, give it all away, and fall in love with life again and again. So with this card, I invite you to find a way to fall in love with your life again and again and again. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of my Tiny Tarot practice. If you loved those lines I just shared from Cecily, I highly encourage you to head to the show notes and check out her book, Tarot for Creative Spirits, which is the presenting sponsor of this season of the show. We're almost finished with our 5th and final season, so thank you again for being here, and I look forward to our next episode.